Shazam is the latest film in DCEU, and it is about a 14-year-old boy called Billy Batson who, when he is given the powers of a wizard, turns into a superhero whenever he says the word Shazam. But he has no clue how to deal with it, and has to have help from his foster brother Freddy to learn how to become a good superhero. I've never hated or disliked the DCEU, it's just incredibly uneven, and all over the place. If you've seen my Aquaman review I did back in December, you know I didn't even really like Aquaman. But it has found its footing by telling separate stories in the same world, rather than interconnected stories trying to set up as many sequels as possible. And this is certainly the strongest entry so far in the DCEU, as it has real heart and knows how to execute this story to full effect. Zachary Levi is the only person who could ever have played this role, and he is the best part of the film by far. He is an adult face and body, but it is just like a child in his actions and words. He makes so many jokes work, and lands the more comedic emotional moments. And I couldn't imagine anybody else in this role. Asher Angel is great as Levi's teenage counterpart, and is able to portray so much emotion in one particular scene, which really had me rooting for him. And Jack Dylan Grazer is a delight, and gives us so much giddy excitement towards everything happening in the film. And the comedy is very strong here, stronger even than some of the funniest Marvel films. And the cast makes sure that all of the jokes work, and it's all very well written. It knowingly plays with superhero tropes and cliches, and it uses the comedy as an effective way of seeing how a superhero becomes a superhero. And it enhances the story and is genuinely very funny. The film has a surprising focus on family that it does in a very touching way. It represents foster homes very well and accurately, and family really is the film's beating heart. And it was surprising to see this in a superhero film, and it was really sweetly done, and again had me rooting for the characters at certain points. And Mark Strong's villain is fine, but it's the way Strong plays it that works perfectly against Levi's silly, light-hearted performance. Strong plays it straight-faced and seriously, which is the best way the villain can be played in this heavily comedic film, and it really works in certain action scenes, and Strong's performance makes one particular joke all worth it. And some of the action is really well staged and is entertaining to watch. The visual effects are extremely good for the majority of the film, especially when Billy is using his powers like flight and electricity. However, there is a very out of place boardroom scene, which is quite violent and very horrific in tone. Perhaps it felt more horrifying to me because the film had already set up a light and funny tone, and the director David S. Sandberg does come from horror. The scene is very well done for a horror film, but it is in completely the wrong film, and it was so out of nowhere, violent and horrific that it just wasn't in the right film. It was very jarring and really disrupted the flow and momentum of the film for quite a while. And very rarely, the CGI is quite bad, and at one or two points it looked as though Zachary Levi's face had been taped onto a flying rubber body. It really wasn't very good in one or two or three scenes. The pacing can be a bit all over the place in between certain scenes, which disrupts the flow of the movie. And lastly, the film is very good, but it's just not as good as everyone else says it is, so I have high expectations, but not as high as everybody else has told you to have. I'm going to give Shazam a 7.5 out of 10. The mid-credit scene is quite confusing for those who haven't read the Captain Marvel/Shazam comics in detail, and I had to look up an explanation for what happened in it, but it did make sense after that, and I can see how it is setting up a sequel in quite an effective way, but once I had read that explanation. And the post-credit scene is quite funny for all viewers. That was my review of Shazam, and I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.